The heat cycle alarm hit the survey crew 40 seconds before it hit anyone watching from inside. I saw it happen the way I had seen it 9 times, that rotation, 6 bodies on the flat stopping mid-motion, not running, because running raised core temperature faster than walking, and walking in a straight controlled line toward the shade canopy. Spherical covers snapped shut along their flanks. Within 90 seconds, all 6 were folded into the cool trench, where they belonged, because the surface of Palin 7 at peak cycle reached 71 degrees, and a Korathi body left out in that heat for much longer than an hour would begin shutting down its respiratory tract from the inside. The 7th body kept working. I watched the human senior surveyor Calloway, the manifest said, crouch at the core sample rig, log a reading, and move 4 meters to the next stake. No haste, no change in posture. I checked my board, certain the crew comm had failed to relay the alarm to the human unit, and opened a channel. Surveyor Calloway, cycle alarm is active, return to shelter. Copy, 2 more cores and I'm done with this line. The voice was unhurried, slightly distracted, the way someone sounds when they're doing arithmetic in their head. I looked at the live feed again. Ambient surface temperature, 71.2. Human core temperature, 37.4. I assumed, reasonably, that the sensor patch had failed. Adhesive sensors did that constantly in this heat, peeling at the edges, reading whatever the air was doing instead of the body underneath. I logged a fault ticket and went back to monitoring my own crew's recovery curves, which were, as always, exactly where they should be. Core temperatures dropping steadily now that they were out of direct exposure, breathing rates settling, the orange warning band on each of their 6 profiles easing back toward green. Calloway's profile did not move. 37.4. Still 37.4. 11 minutes later, when the human finished the 2nd core sample and started walking, unhurried, back toward the equipment shed, which was not the shelter, and which had no environmental conditioning at all. I sent a technician out with a replacement sensor patch. He came back faster than I expected, and he was not, for a Korathi, calm. "The patch is fine," he said. "I checked it against the panel reading directly. It's reading the surface of his skin. His skin is 37.4. The air around him is 71. I don't—" He stopped. Korathi don't have a good word for the next part of that sentence, and neither, frankly, do I. I went out myself for the next cycle. I want to describe what I saw accurately, because the report I eventually filed was disbelieved twice before anyone above me would read it, and I have had a long time since to think about how to say it so it does not sound like an exaggeration. The human skin was wet, not damp, wet, a continuous sheen across every visible surface, the exposed forearms, the back of the neck, the face. At first I assumed this was some kind of cooling garment failure, fluid leaking from a suit reservoir. There was no suit. The human was working in a light field jacket, sleeves rolled, and the moisture was coming from the skin itself. From what I would later learn were several million individual glands distributed across nearly the entire body surface, releasing fluid that the 71-degree air immediately began drawing heat from as it evaporated. Before I go further, I should explain what I did next, because it matters for what came later. I pulled the colony's full physiological archive, every species on record across our survey network, 411 entries, cross-referenced against thermal tolerance and heat dump mechanism. I was looking for precedent, something anywhere that matched what I was seeing on Calloway's profile. There was nothing. Several species had higher absolute heat ceilings than Korathi. None of them, not one, showed a continuous, full-surface, self-regulating cooling mechanism, with no apparent upper bound within the range we could test. I flagged the search as incomplete and ran it twice more, assuming I had built the query wrong. I had not built the query wrong. A Korathi vents heat through 8 spherical ducts along the abdomen. It is an efficient system, evolved for a temperate world, and it has a hard ceiling. Past a certain ambient temperature, Heat comes in through the exoskeleton faster than 8 ducts can move it out, and the internal organs begin to cook. That ceiling is why my crew gets 90 minutes of exposure per cycle before retreat becomes mandatory, and why I have, in 11 years on this posting, treated 4 heatstroke cases that did not survive the trip back to the medical bay. The human had no ducts. The human had no ceiling that I could find. The human had instead what amounted to a cooling system distributed across the entire exterior of the body, running continuously, requiring no mechanism, no power cell, no maintenance, and apparently no awareness on the part of the person using it. Because when I asked Calloway directly how the heat felt, the answer was, dry. I'd rather it were dry. I ran a full diagnostic that cycle. Thermal imaging showed the skin surface running several degrees above normal. The body was absorbing heat, exactly as physics demanded. But the evaporative layer was pulling that heat back out as fast as it arrived, and the core never moved. I compared it against my own crew's profiles from the same hour. 6 Korathi, cycling in and out of shelter on a strict schedule, core temperatures oscillating in a narrow, safe band through careful management. 1 human, no schedule, no shelter, flat line. By then I no longer trusted my own instruments, so I called in Dr. Vrenkasa, the colony's senior physiologist, and asked her to bring her own equipment, a separate thermal rig, calibrated independently, never connected to my panel. She set it up without comment, ran it through the human survey unit for a full cycle, and came back to the observation deck with the same numbers I already had. She did not say anything for a while. Then she asked to see the archive search I had run, read it twice, and asked whether I had checked it against the data from the 412. I told her there were only 411 entries. There are now, she said, and logged the human as the 412th. By the 4th cycle, a second human had come out to relieve Calloway, a younger one, who immediately asked in the same unhurried tone whether anyone had water, because some people don't drink enough out here and then they're the ones who go down. It was said as a mild caution about other people, not about themselves. They drank from a canteen. Wiped their face with a sleeve, wiping away the cooling system as casually as someone might wipe a window, and went back to the rig. I brought the full data set before the colony assessment board that evening. 6 profiles from my crew, perfectly normal, perfectly managed, perfectly bounded by a hard physiological limit we had built our entire operational schedule around. 1 profile from the human survey unit, flat, for 4 consecutive cycles, across 9 hours, in conditions that would have killed any one of us in under 2. I explained the mechanism as best I understood it, the distributed glands, the continuous evaporation, no ducts, no ceiling, no schedule. I explained that the human had not been managing the heat. The human's body had been managing it automatically at a rate that scaled with how hard they worked, requiring nothing from them but water they hadn't bothered to track. I explained the mechanism as best I understood it, the distributed glands, the continuous evaporation, no ducts, no ceiling, no schedule. I explained that the human had not been managing the heat. The human's body had been managing it automatically at a rate that scaled with how hard they worked, requiring nothing from them but water they hadn't bothered to track. One of the junior assessors asked whether this might simply be an unusual individual, a single human survey worker with some rare condition, not representative of the species. It was a reasonable question, and I had asked it myself. Dr. Casa answered it. Over the following 2 cycles, she had run the same thermal profile on the 3rd human in the survey unit, the one who had relieved Calloway, and on Calloway again after a full rest period. Both came back identical. Same flat line, same wet skin. Neither human had been told what was being measured or why. The senior assessor studied the 2 charts side by side for a long time. Then she asked the question that was, I think, on everyone's mind, the question the data itself seemed to be asking. Why hasn't the human's core temperature risen? No one answered. Not because no one knew, by then I had explained it twice. It went unanswered because everyone in that room had already done the second calculation, the one underneath the first, that the flats of Palin 7, which our survey teams could work for 90 minutes before retreat, which had shaped every schedule, every shelter, every assumption in 11 years of colony planning, were, to the species we had brought here to help us survey them, simply a place where the air was a little dry. We filed the report. We have not since scheduled a single survey rotation without a human present.